Alan Wake, man, it is something special. I enjoyed the 3 hours that I got to play it. The cool thing is they let us play one half as Saga and then the other half as Alan, which are the 2 different protagonists in the game. And it's just, there's some incredible stuff that they have put together as far as some of the just technical things that they have built, that I'm kind of like, how are you doing this? Because we've talked about some of these different things, like with Ratchet and Clank is one of the more recent ones where Insomniac really did something insane with that whole run up to the shard, hit it, and boom, you're in a different instance of the game. In Alan Wake, they take that and it almost feels like it's on another level with the way that they're doing it, but they're weaving it really into the fabric of how they're telling the narrative. And that's where you're seeing this Remedy level of, okay, wait, you're telling me this, you're changing the way this story is built based on this. So it's really cool seeing a developer that they've always been one of those that aren't afraid to just chase who they are, but it's cool to see them marry that with some different approaches. And the first section, and it's also cool, they're not leaving anybody behind either. I know that fun thing is that we're 13 years since Alan Wake came out, so it's like, do we appeal to new gamers? Do we appeal to the fans of the old game? Because it has been 13 years. So
it's been 13 years already?
It released in 2010.
Dear Lord.
So, and you put the remaster out there, but you aren't guaranteed that everybody, I'm going to go buy the remaster so that I can play 2. You're going to have plenty of people starting off with 2. So they had to figure out the way, how do we cater to the original players while still pushing the medium forward, and these 2 different playable protagonists is the perfect way to do it. Let me explain the way that they're doing that. Saga, she is an FBI agent who is investigating when she first gets there, she's investigating these mysterious ritual killings that are happening. So, and then when we got to the section I'm playing in, she's investigating the cult itself that is behind a lot of this. So, and they're called the Cult of the Tree, which if anybody's seen some of the pictures I shared of the event, the fun thing was you had these dudes in like these raincoat outfits with deer masks on that were walking around as we played the game and would come up and just stand next to you and watch you play, and you wouldn't even. I was so engrossed. It's like I'd look. It'd scare the crap out of it. It was
it's freaky.
It is preview event kind of like. I mean, they really went hard on the whole themed thing. So
I wonder why they did that, because I'm like, ain't nobody gonna be coming up in my house with no raincoat and deer mask.
I hope not,
watching
man.
me play.
That better not arrive with the day 1 patch.
Lights go out and all of a sudden my door opens, green screen ripped down, and
I'm not playing this anymore. Get out of here.
Wow.
I'm switching. I'm switching to wild card football, guys. Oh, Colin Kaepernick's here. But now that I've gone off completely on a off trail,
this is my fault.
She's investigating this. So when you arrive in this level, it's around the Bright Falls area, which is where the original game was based. And you can tell right off the bat, it's this mountainous northwestern forests and the dense gray fog that kind of is around everything. Really rainy. So it's that atmosphere that the original Alan Wake had, it's here in Saga's story, which is cool because it leaves you as somebody like me who played a lot of the original Alan Wake, really enjoyed the original. You feel right at home in that sense of, okay, this is familiar. I've played this kind of game before. So with Saga, you go around with her, and at the beginning, you're just kind of talking to some of the citizens and whatnot, trying to figure out where you need to go next. They don't, when it comes to like where you're supposed to go, they don't hold your hand. Like it really is a walk around and talk to people and try to get to that next piece of dialogue that'll kind of push you in the right direction.
More investigative.
Yeah. Which, again, she's an FBI agent. That's kind of makes sense as to how it should be. And you do a lot of that. Now, I wandered around. I'll admit I tried to stick my nose in like every nook and cranny possible because that's just, I love exploring these kind of games. And it took me a second. You could just admit
you're a nosy guy. It's okay.
Yes, exactly.
It's okay.
But it took me a while. I got over to where these bikers were that I'd been told about outside of town in the direction roughly as to where I was trying to go, had a conversation with them, and then I had certain dialogue choices that popped up with that there's a little thing denoting, little icon denoting, hey, this is going to be an important piece. So I was talking with them, and I'm like, okay, I have nowhere to go from here after doing those things, and look down, and it was, the icon had popped up saying, hey, you need to go into the Mind Palace. Now, this is where, and I say Mind Palace, that's actually Sherlock Holmes. It's Mind Place in this. Same idea.
Take away one
different name. In this place, you load in one of the, it's a very technically, like I'm kind of blown away by what they've done, because you are literally loading into, it's like this little cabin that you walk around in. It's got your case board, it's got your profiling, like everything that you do is you're clicking around things in it, which I believe I may have captured some of it right here. I'm not remembering specifically, to be honest with you.
We'll see it. Okay.
I'm hoping at least that I captured some of it. But when you boot into that little spot, you have to make sure you don't do it in combat, number one, because your game is still active underneath this menu. Like, and I say menu, and what just booted up right here, this profiling section, it's literally, like I said, it's like you boot into this cabin, and it's another instance of the game running over the top of your game. And it's instant. Like, I did not have any loading time. It was like, boom, I'm in it. Which to me, again, is very impressive. It's not just a menu. You are actively walking around, picking things, doing upgrades, doing these different things. Just a really cool thing. With this, she took some of the dialogue ideas. You click on those, and she profiles like that particular piece of dialogue to the person, so that way you can unlock new bits of dialogue. And like I said, it doesn't hold your hand, but it doesn't. I never felt like I was in a spot where I was left alone, if that makes sense. It wasn't like, just figure it out yourself. It was, we're not going to tell you something's going on here, but there's enough here that you can kind of, it's hinting towards where you should go while not dragging you straight to it. And I was very happy about that, because too many games don't know the line of, here, go do this. And just figure it out. Like you've got to help your players while not just giving them freebies all the time, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And I like the way that they did that. Learning just these different things of the plot. Apparently the people in this town know you and you're guessing that it has something to do with how things are tying together with the dark place and reality, because there's some overlap that's going on. I will say, with the story, there's a lot here that I did not understand, and that was just because I'm playing this game out of sequence. So there's going to be a lot of threads that I just don't see, but it's still very well told, so that I could get to where I knew what kind of was going on to a degree. I just didn't have all the context of what was going on because of playing it out of order. So I can't wait to play this in order and have context on it. Once you get through all your profiling and stuff, you get to go through the woods, and the woods is a very creepy place, as you've seen from some of the gameplay that's already popped up on the screen. You aren't. I wasn't in any spots in Saga's gameplay where I felt like super overwhelmed with enemies, that's kind of how the original Alan Wake was. They're they take quite a few hits once you take your flashlight and burn the darkness off of them that's protecting them. So that was a that was a lot of fun just figuring that out. I know you looked over my review for the remastered, and I know Anthony, and I mentioned how it felt like a 360 game in terms of like some of the jerky movements and dodging and such. That is not present here. That is completely cleaned up, thankfully. Your dodge and everything does not feel odd or anything like that. All the movement feels very good. And I've mentioned this so many times before. I think I said it actually during the Summer Game Fest preview. I love the sound of the pistol that Saga has. There's just a visceral crack to all of the gunfire it just sounds really good to me, and you feel the impact of it when you're shooting. And like it makes Remedy be able to do less with more, or more with less, because this game isn't based around combat. That's not what's driving everything forward. What's driving everything forward is the narrative, but the gameplay is still very good. And that's just good about the game. Yeah. Because when it can still be a highlight, even though it's not doing a lot, I appreciate that. Trying to remember, I'm looking. This is where we got to Coffee World. It's like this little amusement park that was built by the two bikers, and you're supposed to be going to get some keys from here to progress on. And as you can see, you're looking at like these notes and stuff, which is in the bottom left corner. You could see you're actually putting these clues together, which can help lead you to what you need to do next. Again, not hand holding, but letting you know, hey, there's clues here. You can go to the case board and kind of figure all of this out. And everything here, one of the things I said in the video preview that I did is there's a lot going on here, even though it's not like, for instance, like Night City is just a visual feast. Even when the game was not working correctly, even when the game was not working correctly, it looked fantastic. Like
I missed playing it just because I liked going through the world. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks great anyway. This, while it still looks really good, it's hard to do a lot with fog and trees when you're walking around this is one of the more pretty parts in terms of what's all going on. When you're just walking in the woods, you're not going to get these visual feasts of, oh man, look at this. This is just, but yet they still manage, again, like the combat. It feels like they're able to do more with less, in the sense that you're almost unnerved because there's not a lot around you that's familiar. It's almost that I could get lost out here. And the only people around are crazy people muttering to themselves, taken over by a presence.
I was gonna say too, the lighting looked really good off of the flashlight.
Yeah.
Just that alone, they got more room to do with that, since they don't, I imagine, don't have to put a whole lot more polygonal stuff all over the place, because it's shrouded and whatnot.
Well, and it's nice that like they've not mentioned ray tracing or anything like that. Ray tracing is just super expensive for anybody to use. So that's why we've heard it less and less called out since the beginning of the gen, when everything was ray tracing.
Yep.
And now, like, they could have done some incredible things with ray tracing, but I'm glad they didn't, because it already looks this good with what you're using. There is a lot of, I'm sure you see on here, I'm picking up a lot of stuff as I'm walking around, and they do take the Resident Evil route in terms of your inventory. There's a limited amount of things you can carry at once. You can eventually upgrade your inventory, but it's that box inventory of, if I want to carry a bigger thing, like I have a shotgun in this. I also found a crossbow. That means I'm going to be able to carry less ammo. I'm going to be able to carry less health items, because your health, you do not regen health. You have to use health items in order to generate back. And in this game, your flashlight does not recharge at all. You are completely all battery segments. Like there's like 5 charges per battery when you use it. That was such a different thing from playing the original Alan Wake. I was actually very confused at the very beginning of my first fight, because I could not figure out why in the heck just shining the flashlight on them was not doing anything. And it's because you're having to hit a specific button to kind of hit them with a really big flash of it. And it was messing me up quite a bit. This is this one that you're seeing right here, where I'm on this kind of fair ride. Was
the Tilt-A-Whirl, isn't that what it's called?
The Tilt-A-Whirl. Yep.
Yeah.
This was a really interesting, fun one, because I'm just running around trying to hide behind these different Tilt-A-Whirls and heal, and like I was still figuring out the system right here. So I'm like, no, I want to stay behind cover, but I want to heal. And then trying to burn the darkness off of this guy, but like he's hiding behind this cup that keeps going up. So it was very intense, and this fun of just trying to figure it out without getting hit by 500 sickles that he kept throwing at me. Because Lord knows where he's holding all of those.
Don't
that's
ask
like
questions
Resident
you don't
Evil,
want to know
though.
the answer to.
Yeah, that's like Resident Evil, though, when you'd have to go up to the villagers and they just pull an entire like shovel out from behind, and it's like, where did that even come from, buddy?
How many Molotovs can one person carry? You know.
But I'm sure you could tell watching the gameplay, and just for all of you out there that aren't watching it, that they have nailed the atmosphere of this game. Like everything is just that you can kind of sense the intensity of everything just watching as Saga walks around these areas, because that you can't see very far in front of you. Things are dark and obscured. They do a lot with the sound. One of the recent things that they done with behind the scenes is talking about the sound of fear, and that is just so prevalent in Alan Wake. Is just you'll hear these things muttering as you come around like a corner. You'll hear these dark taken people. You'll hear cracks of the forest and just sounds that are just there to make you just uneasy. And then when you combine that with just there are some fantastic pieces in the music behind everything, but a lot of the times it's just this gentle wail when you're in these combat situations, just that horror. It's just and it just like, it makes you uneasy and unsettled. You're like, I don't know what's going on, but I don't feel right. And it's just using it. If you use the right notes, it's the same reason that metal music is in minor chords. It's made to make you angry. And they are capturing that sound when they are messing with this. I
want a moment in Alan Wake 2 where you know it's just kind of quiet, and then all of a sudden it's just like like that good metal scream that they do, just out of nowhere. And you turn on the radio, and that's what you're like. So, oh, frick!
I don't remember specifically any moments like in that kind of a sense, like a metal scream or anything. They do have a couple times where it does do the and something like flashes on the screen. But it's these intelligent jump scares. Like,
what is that?
It's a wolf that is also taken over by
it's
the
a
dark
big
presence.
Cat. That is a.
That's a little more than a wolf. Dear Lord.
It's taken by the dark presence. So
when you say taken, I think Destiny. Okay, so
yep, it's an alien wolf.
oh my god, that thing is.
I said you
big.
just feel. You can tell a lot of these combat moments. You just feel uneasy. It's like, how did you
Yeah.
get there?
Its hair is all matted and stuff. It's already bloody. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, they did implement a wound system in this, so that there's a lot more of blood spatter and you seeing the spots where you've hit them. So that's a different thing that happened with this comparatively.
Totally botched that jump though.
Oh, you see
Ran
how that
straight
kept
into the
flipping
table.
back and forth? That was the menu.
It did.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's how fast that loads. It's just incredible to me that you can literally just load right into another instance of the game pretty much. But
yeah, I think that's the thing I have to see for myself because I don't know. I wasn't impressed with the Ratchet and Clank thing like everybody else was. So yeah, I don't know. I think I need to see more of that.
And that's the thing is that's not that's not even how impressive it can be in terms of like with Alan's use of all of this is even more impressive.
Well, David, stop teasing me and tell me about it.
Well, considering we're just getting to the end of the gameplay with Saga, it's probably the perfect time to jump away. One of the things I do want to mention about Saga that I do love with her is I love her character, and she feels more settled than Alan did. Like, it was very panicky in the original Alan Wake, and because she's this FBI agent, you feel like she can handle things, even though there's a lot going on in the background of just these things that is kind of freaky and messing with her. She still seems like she keeps her cool better. and it's almost that more grounded feeling that she has compared to Alan. Now, Alan,
I was gonna say Alan was a journalist, right, or something like that. Yeah,
he wasn't supposed to, I mean, the guy's finding.
Or was a writer.
He's finding all these pages that he wrote that he doesn't remember writing, and the stuff is happening as soon as after he finds the page. Like, that would mess with anybody.
Yeah, that's trippy.
Go back, if you would, on this to where he held up the light lamp. Shouldn't be too terribly far back.
I just want to point out, like, you saw it a little bit in like the Saga gameplay, but like here too, I like the fact that it's very dark and brim around, the overall atmosphere. The lights pop, like,
yes,
very much so.
This right here is another part of the whole technical Marvel stuff. You have a light lamp with Alan where you can essentially displace the light. You can grab a hold of it, and it will change the entire area in front of you to help you with getting around. So boom, immediately changed over so that I've got this space on my left to be able to go through. And it really is, you saw right there, instantaneous. And some of it is that they're changing pieces rather than, obviously the entire level does not change, but that's just a really cool part. Sometimes you'll have to use that charge in other places. Other times it just doesn't come into play, but I think it's really neat what they've done. The shadows are really, really super creepy when you get to this, because they are whispering to you, and not all of them are attacking you. Some, like that one, just fade away. So you're worried. You're worried with, do I waste one of my battery charges to melt them away, because they still can possibly hurt me? But there sometimes are a ton of them. One of the things you'll notice here, this is taking place, Alan is trapped in the dark place. So this is actually resembling his past, which is New York. And it's not a one-for-one recreation of New York or anything, but it is New York, it just in a way, in design. And everything here is just like, it's dark. Like, it is the dark place, but it is like night when you are in here. So it's very different from what we just watched. Saga was like, okay, I'm in this like Alan Wake kind of space where it is creepy and stuff. This is just where they went nuts
Yeah,
with.
this warbly effect that they got going on here, and then especially when he threw that flare, everything looked super saturated for a
Oh,
moment.
dude, yeah, it
It
is
is
just.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Batman Begins, that little scarecrow effect.
Yep.
That's what it reminds. It's very that.
Man, it's like feels like 100 miles an hour at moments. And then this is one of there are echoes in these different spaces where essentially you line up these two balls of light and it plays like a cutscene, or an in-game scene, should I say, since it's not really a cutscene, because you can still move around in the middle of all of this. You just, you choose not to because you want to progress the story and listen to stuff. But it's cool because they have actually married live action with gameplay. Like there is actually moments where you'll have not just cutscenes, but like there are like that right there that you were watching. A lot of that right there was actually live action. It wasn't actually like it was. They pushed it into the game. Like what you were seeing right there was an actual live action thing that they have done. Like they actually filmed this stuff on sets.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but they've like intertwined gameplay. It's almost like they took the idea that they had with Quantum Break, but instead of making you stop and watch a TV show, they've intertwined it into the gameplay.
Okay.
This again, I keep talking about technical marvels. This with the rehearsal space, this is one of the more impressive things. You go to this plot board, and since Alan's a writer, he's not figuring these things out. He's rewriting the plot of these areas. And boom, suddenly it's different. And you've got this echo here that you can discover. Like, and there are multiple ways this room can show up, and they're all in an instant that they load. So it's like there are multiple instances of this room that are there that you can discover as you're doing this. And that's just, to me, is just, it blows my mind that it's mainly the thing that in the past, like, this is not something, even if you could load something fast, is possible. Like, but in this, it's like, it flows compared to what we're used to and how you can tell something. And being able to use this kind of technical wizardry, I keep using the term of, it allows you to build stories this way, the way that they are doing this. And it's just really cool how they're able to build the stories this way. And you go to essentially the way these areas these happen there are scenes. Those are the places you go to. And then you get plot elements, which it just showed up on the bottom left. You click on your scene that you were in and you swap out that. And it changes again. It's about to change again. Boom. Suddenly it's different. And it will open up. It's kind of like that light lamp where it will open up new passageways for you to get through to different new scenes and be able to find other new plot elements. This right here, it's about to suddenly boom. That's the death animation and instantly loads back in. That's how fast it loads after you die.
Yeah.
This was an intense scene right here because you could jump to here and then I swap out to Haunted, and then little thing as he rewrites, boom, I'm all of a sudden in the scene. The scene is different. My writer's desk is up there and there's all the chairs are strewn across the floor. It is definitely, like I said, that just so much more. Like the other Saga's part is intense. This is just turned way the heck up. And it's not just the intensity of like, oh, I'm fighting all these things or whatnot. It's just the subject matter is so much more harrowing. Like you're trying to discover things that happened in this hotel with these ritual killings and the mystery behind killings that are in here and whatnot. And I can't wait to play this again in context because all of the narrative is just, there's so much that I want to understand behind what's going on, and I'm curious as to if we're gonna have some the Prestige or Inception kind of style stuff, and I'm gonna be playing this and get to the last mission, and be like, that's what's been happening this whole time.
That'd be cool.
Because there are a lot of what the heck moments. One of the live action cutscenes, which we were not allowed to show, is just it was that way. It was very creepy and what is going on. This right here is one of the safe rooms, and I abused the heck out of this at one point because this fight is really hard. So I did the old Resident Evil pop out of the safe room, kill people, walk back in where they can't come to me.
Yeah.
And
Cheese it.
They did kind of run in a little. They could run in a little bit, but yeah, I was taking full advantage of.
That's their fault.
Of that, exactly. But it was so much fun, so intense with Alan's part. I didn't get to explore the world nearly as much. I did complete this level right before we had to quit, but it was one of those things of, man, Alan's back. And this area, I know we talked about the visuals of Bright Falls obviously not being as grabby. This area is grabby. Like, there's tons of neon signs. You can see just everything going on in that room. Everything is just they're a lot more on the visual feast side of enjoyment. Like when I first booted up this level, which is, I believe it's level 5, I just sat there because just the perfect New York that was kind of in front of me, the way that they had designed it just looks so good. Trash strewn everywhere. They've done a lot with the assets in this game.
It looks so good. There's trash everywhere.
It's more in the terms of when I look at all of it, it's the fact that you can put all of this here and make it like, there's a word that I'm looking for and I can't think of it, but it's just cool the way that they've built everything so that it has a lot of personality to it.
What is the best demonstration of technical capabilities? Throw trash everywhere.
But yeah, this is where I figured out, oh wait, I have another scene. So I ran back. It's like, I want to see what happens here.
But there's more.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, there's multiple ways that you can come across all of this. And it's just so cool. And you're all the dead cultists. Because
how's
God
the advertisements?
It's creepy. What's that?
I said, how are the advertisements?
The advertisements?
Yeah, weren't there little advertisements in the first one? I know they took them out. I'm being facetious.
That was before the show just happened and all the creepy dead cultists are laying around. But that's just, it's a really cool way to tell your story, is to have it where you're rewriting the story to figure things out, and being able to use those technical, the game design behind that to tell your story is just really cool. Because this right here switches. Oh, look, a dead guy. But I can't progress past you.
It feels like they took that mission from Titanfall 2 and we're like, we're just going to crank this up to 10 levels and do our own thing.
Well, the game director for this, which we have an interview on the page on our site for him, he actually was part of the design for Quantum Break. Like, that was actually the first game he worked on for Remedy. So it makes some of these things make sense. Interestingly enough, he was also part of the game design team for Cyberpunk. So he's got a lot of different experience with some very different style games. So he can certainly bring some expertise to this and some different ideas to make things even creepier.
What's up with this little flashlight technique they're using against your enemies?
That I'm hiding in the room?
No, you like shine your flashlight on them, it looks like, and then like they explode a little bit.
So that's with the charge. So in the original Alan Wake, and I apologize that I didn't explain this enough, but the original Alan Wake, the only way for you to actually kill your enemies, they were protected by the dark presence. So you had to shine your flashlight on them to burn the darkness away, and only then could you actually kill them.
So that's a consistent mechanic in this one.
So it's still a mechanic for both Saga and Alan in this one.
All right.
From what I understand, and I don't know if there are any restrictions with it. I believe at least within the first couple of levels there might be, but if I'm remembering right, you can actually play through every level as either Alan or Saga. Like it's literally, when I say dual protagonist, it is dual protagonist. Like it's different, but from what I understand, it's different sides of the story. Maybe leading you to a similar place. Just there's the way the dark presence corrupts everything on its side, so you're going to experience it in a different way. So I all I know is like everything is just lining up to be just so good. I am very excited with this. They have kind of created the Remedy verse in the sense that do you remember Control?
Yeah.
Control, Anthony?
Yeah. I haven't played it yet, but
okay. Yeah. So it is actually tied into this. They have tied Control to this with the paranormal stuff that is going on. So it's very interesting how they're building this universe that is going to be interconnected. And I'm glad that they're linking Alan into it, because the ideas that are here are just great. And I love the evolution of their storytelling. Remedy's always been great at telling great stories, and the way that they're able to continue to one-up themselves, I guess would be the best way to put it, it makes me so excited to play this, especially knowing that there's full-on mechanics that I have not been able to experience, like changing protagonists.
Well, I guess what's next is either a Remedyverse platform fighter or Battle Royale.
Well, they do have apparently I believe there is a Control. They are working on some form of multiplayer game. I think that's themed on Control. Don't quote me specifically on that. I don't remember everything for that. But they are working on a multiplayer game. They are working on Control 2. And they're also working on Max Payne remasters for the first two games.
Oh, yeah.
Which are supposed to be brought up to modern standards, is what they've said. So
very nice. I like the sound of that. They would probably do a card game. That's what they would do.
All I care is that Sam Lake makes the face again for Alan, or for Max.
Sweet.
But yeah, there's a lot I could say. I feel like I would just babble about different random things, because I just love the aesthetic. I love the thriller survival horror nature of it. And this is, I'm a person that doesn't care as much for like Resident Evil and a lot of survival horror games, because a lot of them are more about just freaking you out. Whereas this, it's, and I don't want to make it sound like these other games are dumb. It's that I love the intelligent horror that they're putting together. It's like they're here. It's not that this is scary. It's that there's a reason that it's scary. And they're delving more as to the symptom behind the scariness, rather than just, or they're getting to the root of it rather than just the symptom of it. Like why I'm scared of it.
I played Crash Team Rumble, and I must say, I am vindicated. Everything that I talked about in my YouTube video that everybody hated on and putting thumbs down and said this is going to be a great game, I don't care what you got to say, I'm going to buy this anyway because I'm a Crash fan. I am vindicated. There's really not much to this game. It's not that it's a bad game. It's really not. It's not that it's not fun. It's that it's just super repetitive and not very deep. So you could get a good little bit of fun out of this game for about 2 hours, 3 hours at a time. Maybe if you're playing with some buddies, a little bit longer. But in terms of
best with friends.
Best with friends, absolutely, 100%. And again, it's not that you can't have fun. I've been playing it, I've been mastering it, but again, it's just not something that has a ton of depth to it. Map designs change. They have, I think, 8 maps, I believe it is. But you generally treat them all the same way. There's not really too much that happens unless players activate things. There's no like extra traps that you have to, get around or deal with unless players activate them. Like you saw me just activate something on that small pad. And so you're ultimately just fighting other Crash Bandicoot characters and trying to collect Wumpa Fruit and then bring the Wumpa Fruit back to your base and collect as much of that as possible and be the winner of the match. And you do that over and over and over again in a way where per level, per match, that dynamic does not get any more interesting. It is literally, let me just go run around, collect some Wumpa Fruit. Maybe I can activate some pads that allow me to get more Wumpa Fruit at one time. Maybe I'll activate some traps, a super that my entire team can have, and that is literally every single match. And it's weird explaining it that way, because if you broke down like Dota 2 in that way, yeah, you just go around and fight people and like activate stuff and go through the jungle, like do stuff like that. Yeah, it could be broken down that simply. But we know games like League of Legends, Dota 2, shoot, any Apex Legends, Halo, there's more counterplay that happens. There's more nuance that happens in those games. Where there's blockers, which they're very good at blocking you from putting your Wumpa Fruit in your base or just making it hard for you to do anything. And then there's scorers, which they do a better job of collecting Wumpa Fruit at one time and being able to put it in the base, but they're weaker. And then I forget what the other role is, but none of those roles really do anything per person. I would say the scorer and the blocker are probably the most important because they have real difference for the game. But really, everybody can do a very good job at collecting and scoring. So you don't feel the class differences that the game provides. Roles. I wouldn't even call them. Maybe like they feel like, so like Overwatch has, support, tank, and all that. None of those are soft roles. They are legit roles, and you got to figure out, which character of those roles best suits the situation. This, while different characters of different roles do different things, none of those things ultimately matter enough to change the outcome of a match. If you got a blocker on your team, that doesn't necessarily give you a bigger advantage over another team that does not have a blocker, if that makes sense. So those kind of things ultimately end up not mattering. And so per match, I just find myself, I'm just going to focus on getting me some Wumpa Fruit. I'm going to run around, get some Wumpa Fruit. Maybe some people will challenge me. That's fine. I'll run away, grab some more Wumpa Fruit, wait for a moment for the base to clear, drop my Wumpa Fruit. Maybe somebody tries to challenge me. That's so cool. I got a little thing I can drop, a little piranha plant that shoots out things. I forgot what it's called, but I'll just call it a piranha plant for the sake of argument. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
I could drop that, shoots a little thing out, helps me out. And I just keep doing this over and over and over. And yes, some matches are closer than others. This match is actually pretty close, but you don't really feel it as you're playing. And so where's the counterplay? Where's the interplay? That's what's missing from this game. the nuance just isn't deep enough to provide some interesting team dynamics, anything like that. So you just got really a bunch of people running around doing their own thing, having their own mission to accomplish, and it just makes for a very uninteresting game after a period of time. So
see, I think some of the issue for that for you is just the playing without other people, like without other teammates. Because I know we have a 45-minute gameplay video where we were like, you could hear all of us calling things out, playing specific characters, based on what we were doing, having specific roles and stuff like that, and we were following it, and we were getting some good wins out of it. Some of them we were losing because of the way the other team was playing. They were actually working against us with the way that their roles were. So just my disagreement on it, but that's just my experience of it because the only times I've played this game has been with other people.
Sure.
So my experience is going to be much different.
Sure, yeah. And I would agree with that. My thoughts on any game's design like this is if it doesn't work with just playing by yourself, it's not really that interesting. And you need to figure out a way to make it more interesting in case you do have to play by. I get the game is meant to be played with other people, but so is Super Smash Brothers, and that game works beautifully by itself. So this just really doesn't have
Smash
much.
Brothers, you're not playing in a team dynamic either, though.
You can play in a team dynamic, but my point is, it works, right? If you play Halo by itself, it can work, right? Because there's interplay, there's dynamics, there's things that make you focus on a specific thing in order to make that interplay interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's the design of the level, yeah, whether it's the design of the level or, how they almost force you to focus on, where the power weapons are or anything like that. Those kind of things matter. Well, this game is kind of like there's things around there that could help you, but you don't necessarily have to engage with it. They try to call it out. I'll give it that, but it's not done in such a way where it encourages players. Hey, you really should consider doing this thing besides the super that opens up later in the middle of the match.
Yep. Yeah. We were playing for quite a few of these different things, like intentionally. So again,
yeah.
Yep.
I work for them
that's
too.
why it's called Crash Team Rumble.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not Crash Me Rumble.
No, but that's how most people play it that way.
Yeah.
And
and that is the thing.
Yeah. Well, I think a game should be able to do both. Like, it should be able to function and flow if you're solo queuing, but then the experience is just multiplied if you're playing with a team.
Sure.
Like Team Rumble, I enjoyed, with David, I enjoyed the team dynamic. I haven't played since, but it's definitely, just from the small sample size that we played, it doesn't feel like a game I would really have a good time solo queuing in. It would be like, how lucky did I get with the matchmaking and my teammates? That would determine the fun level that I had.
Well, I mean, you could say the same thing with Overwatch as well. Like that at this point has become very much like if you're solo queuing, that is just a dead game at this point. In that way. But again, the way Overwatch, for example, is built, like that game kind of forces teamwork. And if you are not working as a team, you are not going to succeed whatsoever. So this is a game where almost kind of in a Call of Duty sense, it's like one person can kind of carry. I definitely had plenty of those matches. I think I'm level 9 at this point, and I'm playing with people who are like in the 80s and the 100s and the 20s and the, like all kinds of stuff. And I'm sure you had that situation too when you played. And you will find like people just play all kinds of crazy ways. Like,
and that's really the biggest thing is like people, I don't think people always understand how to play this game. Like in that kind of a case, like,
and I think that's part of the design issue. Like it's just not made that clear. And again, it's not like I didn't have any fun.
Oh yeah, how would you correct that design issue? I'm legitimately curious. Like I'm not being sassy in that.
No,
I'm curious,
I understand.
What do you think is the best way to better engage players at the start?
One of my criticisms was I understand this game is not a MOBA, but I felt like when I originally talked about this when the beta came around, I was like they should have taken some notes from what MOBAs do, because again the roles are not impactful enough.
Yeah.
And so make those roles more impactful. How that's done, the designers would have to figure that out.
Like right here, what I saw was obviously y'all were really close to winning. So you had, and the other team pretty much was like, no, we're just going to block you.
Yeah.
And had several blockers there. And like that meant your blocker really needed to do more work to keep them off the point.
Yeah. But there's literally like two of us are on our point trying to score our last Wumper Fruit. Their entire team is over there. So it's where are the other two people?
Your entire team needs to be there to clear them off.
Exactly. And I'm like, we totally could have cleared them off.
They're just delaying it. Yep.
Dude, what was that deployable that we ran into where you could just stick it on a base and people couldn't?
Oh, yeah. That was the giant. It's on the left. Yeah. The one on the left right there.
Did you have that kind of problem, Anthony?
I don't know.
Because
I don't know if they've changed it.
Pain point for us as we saw that.
They would take that big giant guy and stick him literally right on top of the scoring. And I think like you probably shouldn't be allowed to put him on the scoring thing. That makes less sense because that's like having an entire extra character.
Yeah. So to me, that wasn't really.
If you can put, at least you can put yours on there. But it's like if everybody's running that, which is what happened most of the time, you're just chalked.
Yeah, but if you see, like, these guys are using the bouncy balls to push us off, and the little Gaxmodian guard or whatever it's called is not doing enough. And so, there are ways around that thing. It's just, do the players know and are confident enough to deal with something like that? And so, the other thing I would say is, for most of the games, there's not really a clear, like, end game kind of catch up mechanic thing where you can just end the game, or, just somebody can come back because of a thing. It's just kind of the same game the entire time. And it's a short game, so that's fine. But I think both of those games were like 5 to 7 minutes, so they don't last long. But I do feel like there's no tension unless the other team just happens to be close, and it's really just a bum rush for the Wumpa Fruit. And I've won games where, like, we did not get any bonuses. We didn't get any bonus upgrades to our Wumpa stash when we put it in. So it's just, there's all these elements in there that can help, can make your life easier, but they don't have a strong enough impact to be like, oh my God, they got oh God, frick, we're in trouble. There's not really that. And so I believe if the roles were more defined and more interesting, and if the bonuses and the traps that you could collect had a greater impact and made you feel like, oh, frick, like, we really need to fight over these things, then there's more dynamic interplay that's happening. And you really have to decide, well, shoot, do I collect Wumpa Fruit, or do I get the little Unca relics, or what do I do here? That kind of decision making isn't really there. I don't have to do that. I can go collect Wumpa Fruit and pretty much win the game. That's how I've won most of the game. I'm just usually the top scorer on the team, and we win. And the games we don't, it's because somebody else just wasn't pulling their weight for whatever reason. So it's just like, this isn't a hard game to understand, guys. Just get Wumpa Fruit, maybe get a bonus here and there, and we'll be fine. So again, it's not like I don't have any fun. I've played it again for hours.
He's just so good at the game that he's bored with it, and he's like, "This needs to innovate." I beat Crash Team Rumble. I am the Crash Team Rumble. That's what it.
No, absolutely
like.
No. Although Although I don't think I've died. I've died one time, I think, in like, I don't know how many matches. A lot of matches. However many matches it would take to get to level 11. That I've only died one time. So I don't know if it's just the people I'm playing with and getting matched up with, because I'm still getting matched up with people who are like 80, 75, 50, you know, who've clearly put some time into the game. Yeah, it's the same as it was in the beta. It's really nothing's changed. It's just not that interesting. It's just not that interesting of a game. And I wish it was. It really could have been more interesting, but it's not.
Past weekend, they had the open beta for the First Descendant, which is a free-to-play looter shooter. It's third person. It's by a company, Nexon, I believe is their name. And
Nexon, I believe.
I didn't care enough to look into it because I got a little frustrated with my time with it. This gameplay that you're seeing is it's almost like I wouldn't even call it like a strike in Destiny or anything. Basically, you load in, there's this big, gigantic Goliath-looking enemy type. They don't really explain it too well. They're just like, hey, there's this big thing, you need to go kill it. And so you hop in, and it's just a bullet sponge. It's the only enemy you really fight besides a couple of like small ads that spawn in. But it's just a bullet sponge. And at the end of this, you'll see the reason why I got pretty frustrated playing the beta, and I know it's a beta. I around level 19, 20-ish, I believe. I put about 5-6 hours into it. I ran into an inventory bug where the weapons. Yeah, well, I got wrecked. I don't even know what, because I was pretty over leveled in this. And so around level 19, I noticed, I was like, I'm not picking up any weapons or artifacts that drop. And I noticed, because I was like, oh, well, maybe I filled up my inventory space, and I'll go back to my home, your little tower, your hub, if you want to call it that. And I'll see if maybe it's in like the postmaster or whatever, you want to call it, the mailbox where all your extra gear goes. Well, I look and I was like, oh, well, here's all this stuff. And I went to check my inventory. There was nothing in my inventory. So I was like, why is this? Why can't I pick anything up? Because you can't re-equip anything. You're just kind of stuck with what you got. And so I couldn't transfer anything from my storage into my inventory. And so because I was progressing into the story and the levels, I was like, I'm not going to go into all of these upcoming missions 5, levels under, simply because the game is, bugging out and not letting me get higher level gear. And so I just quit, which you can see right here. Nothing in my inventory.
I like how you're circling it, because you like, I'm going to show this off. I need you guys to understand.
I was like, this is, I'm going to sound like a crazy person if I don't like bring proof. And it was really, I don't know if it was just a let's pick on Noah kind of thing, but I checked online. I tried to find forums. I checked the patch notes, and there was nothing said about this that I could find. There might be that I just missed. But yeah, nothing I could transfer. But yeah, the First Descendant overall, I will say it feels really good in terms of gameplay. It's a third-person shooter. You have some abilities. They aren't really off of a cooldown. You can use them again if you build up a certain meter that's below you. The Descendants are kind of just different heroes. They each come with their own kit and utilities. The one that I picked, she's very much AoE based. She had ice powers and abilities, which was I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, as you can see here, it's all in my inventory, and I'm moving it from inventory to storage, and it's not there. So yeah, it was very frustrating. But other than that, even beforehand, the vibes and first impressions that I got off this game were mid at best. I mean, the game feels good to play it. It's a good shooter. But the loot all feels the same. You have different archetypes of weapons. So you have a assault rifle, pulse rifles, hand cannon, stuff like that. They take different ammo that you pick up off the ground from defeating enemies. But there's no like sub archetypes. So there's no like fast fire rate, low damage ARs or anything like that. It's you get perks that you can equip to the weapons that'll change like fire rate, add elemental damage, stuff like that. But it's universal. So you can kind of make all the weapons different, but they're still the same family of weapons, if that makes sense. So I ended up just going with whatever was the highest damage that I could and going from there. The story, oh man, it's a pet peeve of mine when in the first mission you're sent as an escort. They're like, hey, there's this relic thing we need to get. You're the soldier of our little organization. We're going to send a runner in there with you who's very fast, speedy. You can go in there. You'll escort. Once you get the relic, you'll come back with it, but she'll carry it the entire time. And so, and this is the very first intro mission. So you go in there, you find the relic, and the person who you're escorting is like, cool, we got this. I'm going to go ahead and run ahead. You take care of these enemies. We'll meet up later on. You're like, okay, cool. So you have to defend, hold off the enemies. Well, you reach the part where you're about to escape, and you're like, we're supposed to rendezvous here. And you look over, and your friend has been taken captive or whatever by what is going to be the game's final boss, because he looks like Ganondorf bought a Reinhardt outfit off the Blizzard store and takes the relic and leaves. And so you go up to your friend, and you're like, hey, it's okay. We'll get it back. There's more. We can still stop them. And you get back, and every NPC character that you talk to gives you garbage and crap the entire time because you lost the relic. And grinds my gears when stuff like that happens. There's literally an NPC character that you have to go and do these little like missions for. Just trashes you the whole time saying, are you going to be able to do this mission? Like, why aren't you doing this fast enough? Are you going to be okay? When you first meet him, you're literally sent to that area to clear out the enemy encampments. There's different ones scattered around because they are weak and they can't fight the enemies. But their their head leader is literally trashing. And it's a pet peeve of mine. Like, I don't like that. It's very annoying. I turned the dialogue off because I got tired of hearing him trash talk me while he's literally like, I can't go out there and fight them, but I'm going to pick on you and say you're horrible. So yeah, dialogue, not very fun, inviting, in my opinion. But yeah, it just overall, for me, it left a pretty bad taste in my mouth. There's lots of other free-to-play looter shooters coming out that I think will, or even not even free-to-play, just looters in general that I think do a lot more things in terms of loot variety and rarity, and also have a more compelling story. It's just very mid. It's forgettable. I played it, and even after the bug, I was like, it didn't bother me that I wasn't going to play this anymore. Yeah. Like there's so many other options out there, and there's no PvP that I've seen, which I think would be a very good thing to add. I think it would add some more variety into the gameplay loop, because your loop that you'll experience is there's a story mini missions that take like 5 to 7 minutes, where it's like, hey, go to this area, defend this radio station, and clear out a couple waves of ads. And you just do that at different points, and then you get a bigger mission that you kill a little bit more ads, and then a kind of powerful boss. And it's not powerful. It's very, very... but the abilities were kind of cool. The Descendant that I played, like I said, had ice powers. So one of the things I could do is I could toss like an ice wave that could freeze and then do some damage. Then one ability is it's almost like an ice skating. You leave a trail behind you of ice and you run around and you have increased movement speed. But if any of the enemies touch that path, they get slowed and freeze and they take more damage. So you kind of played it a lot like Call of Duty Zombies, where you're kiting enemies and having them run, which was pretty cool. But yeah, it's got some cool abilities. The gunplay is smooth. I will say that, but it doesn't matter when all the guns feel the same. Like the ARs felt the same as submachine guns. Like I didn't feel a range drop off that you would expect. The hand cannons were all automatic, so it felt just like a submachine gun.
That's weird.
Yeah. There were pulse rifles, or like 3-round burst rifles that are in the same slot as scout rifles, and they felt, in terms of damage wise, they felt very much the same. So It's just, and this also very early, you can spec and change up a lot of the way the weapons shoot, in terms of like recoil damage. You can add elements, but I feel like the game would be much better if the guns themselves had a uniqueness to them, instead of being like, hey, let me just throw these different mods onto each weapon when all the weapons have the same equipable mods. So there's definitely some glaring issues for me that I had playing it, but overall, like, it's just forgettable. I'm not going to remember this game, but it is free to play, so I'm curious to see what they're going to add to it in order to like entice players to stick around, buy the battle pass, or whatever kind of monetization that they do. Because without PvP, are you just going to add more of the same stuff? It's just really difficult to see what's going to make this stand out amongst the rest. You know what I mean?
That seems to track with what Nexon does. Nexon is the one who made, they're Korean developer, number one, and they are a popular developer in Korea. But they put out MapleStory, which has seemed to have done well out in the West. But they have also had Kartrider, which the one that they've put out over here, Kartrider Drift, played at the beginning of the year. It's, again, very similar to this. It's okay. It's got a little bit to it, but
it's not
forgettable.
It's not that things are just bad. Like I said, the game plays and feels good. It's just forgettable. Yeah. Like, I'm just going to move on. I'm not going to be sitting here next week thinking like, oh man, I wish I could play more of the first Descendant beta. Like, please open it back up.
No, that's how I felt about Kartrider Drift. It looked good in the trailers and all that. I was like, oh, okay. And then it turned out it's like, oh, it's kind of mid. It's like, it's fine. I can't say like, don't ever play it. That's what the first Descendant sounds like. It's like, it's fine. You probably won't regret playing it, but
yeah,
you're probably not going to play it.
Yeah, it's just like, well, you pass them along the street and you say, hey, you're like, oh, okay. And then you just move on.
It's very, very pleasant, very, polite. You're nice. They're a nice person. I don't need to talk to them again.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that tracks with Nexon. They don't make horrible stuff. just not very memorable stuff. Which at least out here, except for MapleStory, it appears. So I remember in late high school and college, MapleStory was like, oh my god, MapleStory. So
I think with First Descendant, they're going more for its shiny and hoping that'll grab people. But
yeah, I mean, visually it's got cool skyboxes and background, but that's about it. Like, there's some of the
an Unreal 5 game, right?
I think so. Like, it's smooth.
I don't know.
I will say the game is smooth. Like the fire.
Yeah, it looks smooth. Yeah,
it definitely is smooth. But that's you got to
Sounds
give
like
me
Nexon.
a reason to play it.
Sounds like Nexon.
Yep, it's Unreal 5. That's what I remember. That's what the main thing I remember about it is they were really advertising that. It was one of the first games that they advertised the whole Unreal 5 thing.
When you got a game that is mostly marketed on the fact that it's on Unreal 5, I wonder what the actual game's quality is.
Yep, exactly.
You're using the engine to promote your game. Okay. Sounds disappointing. Let's spin the wheel. That again?
I'm looking at the Steam database charts, and there's 5 people in game on Redfall right now.
Nexon, I want you to realize
5 lonely souls.
I talked about your game
Steam.
Your game for 5 minutes, and David went to the Steam charts to see who was playing Redfall. That says everything. Okay,
I think you just happened to see what that was. To be fair,
it's a funnier narrative though if we say that David went up to see who was playing Redfall instead of wanting to hear more about the First Descendant.
He's like, that's. I didn't like the First Descendant enough to pay attention, so I went to the Steam database. But then he came up with another interesting story, which is the fact that Redfall has only 5 players out of this. So which is actually more interesting?
Is I accidentally close out my tab and it drops to 4,
What's funny is it did say 6, and I refreshed it, and it said 5. And I only went to look because I saw a random tweet that said 7.
All right. Well, would you rather have Redfall or the First Descendant?
Oh, me? Are you talking about me or David?
Yeah, this is just an open-ended question.
First Descendant. At least it's free.
Yeah.
There's no money invested.
Nope. I'm going with Nexon's First Descendant. Absolutely. I'm
you
never
can't
going
beat
back
that
to
argument.
Redfall.
You really can't.
And Noah said it plays smooth. There's nothing in Redfall that I can associate with that term. So I went the other day, and I know we're getting off on a run. I went the other day, and I was looking through my Steam games, and I'm like, wait a second, I have Redfall. How do I have Redfall? Apparently, Microsoft is going around putting it in people's Steam accounts to get them to play it. I don't know. I do not remember how I got Redfall on Steam. I'm just being honest.
Didn't you get you were playing on Xbox when we were playing? Because I was playing on PC.
Yeah, I was on Xbox.
Oh.
That's why I'm confused.
Yours came preloaded with Redfall.
They wanted everybody to be playing Redfall. I was like, oh, I see you got it on Xbox. Here, we won't just give it to you on Windows Store. You can have it on Steam too.
That's how they got the numbers. Everybody who got a Steam Deck, whatever
David
the numbers are for Steam Deck.
He tries to uninstall and it just pops back in.
Two instances. Like every time you uninstall one, another 2 appear. It's like Hydra.
It's like how it works on Android phones. You can't actually uninstall it. You could just disable it.
Yeah.
It never really leaves.
Yeah, exactly.
It starts pushing your mouse cursor away. It's just like,
no, even worse. It starts pushing your mouse cursor towards the icon to start it. Like,
oh my god. Well, I don't know how to segue. I was trying to think of a way to segue into something about PlayStation and Jim Ryan. But.
So moving to the opposite end of the spectrum, PlayStation.
So, yeah. Speaking of fall, guess who fell and now has to retire?
He didn't fall.
Which to start on all of this before we get into the meat and potatoes of it, I really hope that it's not health related. Because I know that you put out your statements and everything like that, but you always wonder what's behind it. And B, I get where people are like cheering on social media and stuff, and some are just being downright nasty about it. And it's like, fam, PlayStation's one of the strongest brands in the industry. And yes, have they made mistakes? Sure. But Jim Ryan's a big reason why they have so much market presence. Just saying. The man did the business side good.
Yeah, well, okay. Let's first establish what the news is. So,
Yeah.
Jim
I mainly
Ryan,
just was hoping that it wasn't a health issue.
sure. When it first came out, I think the tweet you sent me, David, was Jim Ryan is stepping down, and I was like, where there's smoke, there's fire. They're gonna cover it up, but there's fire. And then it turned out Jim Ryan was retiring. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess it's not really as interesting.
Yeah, because those are two big differences, differences between stepping down and retiring.
Because the narrative I was rolling with was he stepped down. You step down while PlayStation is at its peak? Nah, something's going down. That's wild. You don't do that. When you were part of being the architect of getting PlayStation to this point, there's some smoke over here. And then it was actually he just retired. So
well, and there's a lot of people who are pushing that. They're like, oh, they told him they told him you can either retire or we're gonna like make you step down and stuff. I'm like,
what?
One of the things you'll see actually in the thing is that they promoted an interim while they're promoting someone else. I'm like, that means this happened suddenly. That does not mean the company just planned to tell him you have to go. Like that does not you ain't just interim CEOing someone because you plan to fire someone.
Wait, what are people saying? They brought in an interim CEO, which I know.
Yeah. Well, it was essentially saying that Jim was essentially pretty much told we're either going to fire you or you have the chance to retire so that you can save face, essentially. Essentially, you have the choice. Either we fire you or you retire.
Right, got that. So,
yeah. But it's like, to me,
CEO
to me, like
being CEO, what is this?
To me, the whole idea of they're promoting an interim CEO while they're looking for a new CEO, like that means that this happened suddenly. Whatever happened with this, like
People
this wasn't
dumb.
this wasn't just we planned out firing this guy. Like, yeah, I've seen. There's so many random. That's why I'm hoping it's not a health thing, because of the fact of it happened so quickly that they're promoting and they're going to put in a CEO interim in.
I'm not trying to defend the stupidity here, but if you fire somebody, then yes, somebody's gonna step in as interim CEO. Yeah. Like that's just how that's gonna go, because firings can be sudden as well. But no, like you don't fire somebody when they are, unless they did something super crazy. But this does not seem to be the case. Jim Ryan says, I've relished the opportunity to have a job I love in a very special company, working with great people and incredible partners, but I found it increasingly difficult to reconcile living in Europe and working in North America. Dude is old. Right? So yes.
He's 56.
Well, yeah. Now, old in terms of like flying back and forth, doing all that stuff, like that does take a toll on you after a while. It's not a short trip between North America and Europe. Let's just be real.
Somebody said he would fly for like 2 weeks. He would be in like the States, then a week in Europe, and then another week somewhere else. Like that was his months.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot happening. And so, yeah, maybe health-wise, like that's not good for him. Maybe he's healthy, but in terms of where his health is, doing all that ain't really helping him. So it's probably best he retires. But I mean, I'm going off of what this statement says, because when you are the person who has led Sony to the position that it's at now, you don't just step down.
Yep.
And if you do get fired, like we ain't even got this far. Like,
yep.
This is going to be a pleasant send off. Right? We'll fire you, but we're going to make it look as good as possible. Like that's
like he's staying until end of like April. Like you don't
Yeah.
Like
you don't fire someone and then like, okay, you can run the next 6 months.
Yes,
you can finish out the fiscal year, you know?
You gone, but how about you stay a little?
Yeah.
And like there is no like passive, like subtle hints in that statement that I saw that you could be like, okay, something seems sus here, you know? Like
People can find sus
like
wherever
when
they want it.
When Jeff stepped down from Overwatch, like the subtleties in that we all knew, you know. In this, there seems like there is zero. It honestly sounds just like dudes wants like, hey, I don't have to work anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm just
I think some stuff, like all of this stuff with the Activision stuff, I think that wore him out to this point.
You think
Because I mean, he did go to quite a few different things.
Sure.
And I think dealing with all of that, I mean, it's not just he's going to meetings, it's that these were extra stressful meetings. Like all of these things that he was having to deal with.
I mean,
So
yeah,
I
but
wonder if it added to just the load he already had with having to go back and forth everywhere. Like these were a bunch of extra trips. It was a lot of extra stress on his plate and just made it easier, if that makes sense.
it could have contributed to it, probably in a very small way, but
or he could have just wanted more family time. I don't know, you know. It's just what it seems like.
He like all of us wants to play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah.
you know what? At the end of the day, yeah. He's like, Phil Spencer somehow gets time to play games. I don't, and I want time to play games, okay? So I'm going to retire, yeah.
Speaking of Phil Spencer has the chance to do the funniest thing.
Yeah,
ever.
I was wondering about that tweet that you sent. Why? What funny thing does he have to do?
To go become the head of PlayStation. So Sarah Bond is getting promoted. Why? I'm going to head PlayStation. Guess what? I just tore up the Activision paperwork. We ballin', yo.
Oh my god!
Goes and buys Ubisoft so that he can have the cloud rights to all of the Activision games for PlayStation.
Doesn't have it anymore. Oh my god!
They're having their big meeting to like announce the next. Like, hey, we decided the next, you know, CEO or whatever, and Phil just comes busting out the back like a wrestling, you know, show. like Steve
Phil
Austin
Spencer
just
with
like,
a chair.
yeah, with the chair, busting it down.
Got like a Crash Bandicoot shirt on.
Yeah,
or, you know, like
he just rips
whatever,
it open, you know.
Last of Us, Joel and Ellie on it.
What's interesting is there's actually
Oh
some people have said because they're going with interim, they're wondering if they are looking outside the company at all.
Sure.
Like that, if that's a
Yeah,
there was
Phil.
somebody in a chat there's somebody in a chat recently, and I like almost lost it. They said Phil Harrison looking to get his way back in, and I'm like, oh no! If they let that man anywhere near PlayStation, I will sell my PlayStation 5, both of them.
All I can say, David, you have two.
Yeah, I will sell one of my PlayStation 5s, bro. I gotta still play Spider-Man. What you talking about?
Not Phil. Not Phil Harrison. No.
Yeah. Wrong Phil, guys. Wrong Phil.
Yeah, you got the wrong. And I would imagine I would be like, if I were Sony, I'd be like, you know what? Let's just try to give Phil Spencer a call. Let's give him a call. We're top of market, you know. He can bring some of that cloud prowess over to us because we over here teamed up with Microsoft and Azure anyway. So
literally start your call with, "Hey Phil, you ever imagine what it would be to be in first place?" Oh
exactly.
man, no,
hard sell. Hard sell. That's what you guys do. I mean, we've seen these emails.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so Nintendo, I mean, they had their interim CEO. I think it was their... I forgot what he was before he became actual president, but yeah, he was interim for a while, and then they were like, no, you're doing a good job. Good.
I thought they still promoted someone else.
No, it was the same person they had as interim. They just kept him in the position. So that's entirely possible too.
It is the only interesting thing with this. Apparently, this guy is all about mobile is the future as far as his stance. So
I mean, when you know,
it'll be very
it's not
interesting.
lying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Not
like
lying.
the money's there.
I get that, but at the same point, when PlayStation is your most profitable division, you don't want to kill the golden goose.
No,
at the same time.
but when you are a publicly traded company, you do need to look for where is the more money,
Yeah.
and it's not in PlayStation. It's sorry, it's not in the console. It is in mobile. Not saying consoles tapped out for Sony, but Sony ain't letting the
and they
console.
are growing. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just saying Sony's not going to let the console stuff go away. So that is making money. You keep that going, but how do you expand it? How do you make it make more money? Mobile's the future. Those just ain't lying.
And they are growing that. I forget what they said. There's a studio they bought that does mobile that like cleared like $1 billion or something like that recently. Like that, not while they were there. It's just their overall, but just the fact that Sony bought them, and it has been worth their while for a mobile. So Sony has that's one of the reasons Xbox is trying to get Activision Blizzard. It's the king on the end.
Oh yeah,
they
that
want to
king.
be involved in the mobile space. It is very interesting thinking of just, who would they bring in? Somebody said that Reggie's not doing anything. Get Reggie Fils-Aimé in.
Ooh, I don't know if Reggie would want to head Sony.
I don't think he wants the headache, man. That's the biggest thing. That's a lot extra. Sean Layden ain't coming back. He's been burned. Like I think he feels burned by Sony because I think they pushed him out.
I don't remember who Sean Layden was. I know the name. What did
he was
do?
their last CEO before Jim Ryan. He was I don't want to say he was a Phil Spencer, but he was a lot closer to a Phil Spencer like in terms of he was still the guy who came on stage in a suit, but you could always tell that he was really invested in the players.
Oh, this guy.
I would love to have him back just because I love his outlook, because he's also one of those that said we need smaller games at smaller budgets. And I like that because he said it takes too long to make a video game. And he said that well after PlayStation, but like I like that idea. Stuff like, for instance, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Like it's nice to get those because they're able to be turned over quick. Not only do you get something in the consumer's hands, but it's also not as expensive.
Yeah. The problem is that didn't age very well, only because the market shifted so quickly.
Yeah.
Where it's like it's AAA has become all or nothing at this point. Which it is very risky to make anything that's like
well, and I think this year hurts, to be honest, and it's because this year has been all blockbuster. So next year, what are all of your gamers trained to? Blockbusters.
Oh, for sure.
Like, so you're gonna, whoever doesn't have the blockbusters next year are gonna hurt, and honestly, Sony's gonna hurt next year because they've got some big games, but like most of their games are not announced right now. So I think somebody did the math. 16% of PlayStation Studios has games announced, and that's it. So
I mean, that was better than Microsoft's like 2% up until summertime. So
and then everything got announced. So, but that's, I mean, you wonder like who would they reach into? Like, for instance, they've got Herman Holst, who's head of PlayStation Studios. Is he a possibility here? Like he's the one who heads up all of their, because obviously you want to pull somebody else up to head PlayStation Studios. You'd have to go and find that person after that. Is that a job he wants to be the CEO of? Obviously, I know most people probably want to, but not everybody wants to be the exec and make all the decisions. So he might be happy where he is. Personally, I would love to see Ted Price get it, the head of Insomniac, because dude's been around for forever. And I mean, Insomniac, are one of the best studios in the industry in terms of it comes out, it looks good, it plays good, and it's out the door fast. I mean, there's not a lot of studios who have had the track record that Insomniac does at getting stuff out the door.
Yeah,
and
but
it being in great states.
I don't remember
I know that's not everything, but
I know. I don't remember the
Sierra
last
does.
time somebody who's heading a development studio becoming head of a console division.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting.
Yeah, he's been around for forever though, so that's part of the reason I think about him.
That helps.
Somebody said Yoshida, but Shuhei Yoshida, but he's too happy in his position, going around talking to indie devs and all that kind of stuff. I don't think he wants the stress.
And that is why you stepped away from Sony in the first place.
Yeah. He's still with Sony. He travels for them a lot. Yeah.
Well, he was in one position, then he stepped away from it.
Yeah, they
right?
changed his. Yeah, I forget exactly what he did before, and I don't remember if he was in the similar situation to Sean Layden and got forced into that. But
I doubt it. Nah, but Shuhei did good work. Anybody complained about him, but oh yeah, he was. He was president of SIE
Studios.
Yeah.
So he's in Herman Holst's. He was in Herman Holst's position, I guess now.
Yeah.
Or when he was there, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, he stepped away from that. So why would he go?
Exactly. He may not want to go even higher.
Yeah.
Because he's head of Independent Developer Initiative. So he's literally the one.
Oh yeah, that's a happy position. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's always happy about that too, and that makes me happy.
Yeah, but I think they do need to get somebody who speaks to the UK because
wild card Kojima.
Oh, I don't think they're going to go somebody in Japan though. I think it's going to be somebody who speaks to the UK.
Well, in general, the West, I guess you could even put it.
The West, yeah, but I mean, yes, Sony is strongest in the UK, strong in the US. Xbox is still strong in the US though, just weak in the UK. But Nintendo just dominates Japan. So I wouldn't call it 1-for-1. PlayStation is bigger in US over Xbox still.
Well, right now, yeah,
it always has been, at least since
the 360 era. It was a lot.
Right. Yes. Yeah. But PlayStation 4 and 5. Yeah. But Xbox is still strongest in the US. But Nintendo just dominates Japan. Like Sony doesn't even like try to go for Japan in that way because Nintendo is just so strong in Japan. Like, it's not like they don't care about Japan at all, but they'd rather focus on the West because Nintendo dominates Japan in a way that they just cannot break at all. So, it's fine, but that's why I think they're going to go for somebody who speaks more to the West, probably the UK, since that is easily their strongest market.
Honestly, I can't even think of anybody, beyond like Herman Hulst and Ted Price as to who you'd be looking for it. Like that could just be me in not knowing a lot of these execs, but I can't think of people that I don't grab from from the head of a public studio or something like that, like from that. So
I mean, Nintendo went in house. I didn't know who is Nintendo's. I'm mad. I don't remember his name right now. Current Nintendo president.
Anybody from Bungie?
Oh, I don't think they're going to get somebody from a studio. Shutaro Furukawa. He was.
I'm just saying, Bungie's a different beast comparatively.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Like, just they have been more. They've operated independently for so long. They've know a lot of the inner workings of a lot of things. Like, been around for a long time. Similar to Ted Price. I'm not saying it's for sure. I'm just wondering if they would be, if anybody from them would be on a short list.
I don't know. I think a lot of Bungie people want to stay at Bungie.
It's different from small studio is kind of what I'm getting at. Like this, we're talking more almost near publishers themselves.
Sure, but we are talking about a CEO position. Like this is it's about games, but it's not really about games, right? Like, so going from heading a development studio, which is strictly about games, to heading up the PlayStation, all of it, Sony Interactive Entertainment. That's a different beast to handle.
Yeah. I feel like they need
the
another
reason I say that.
businessman.
I'm curious if they're looking for another Phil Spencer though, like someone similar. There's only one Phil Spencer, but if they'd be looking for someone more similar,
why?
Because like you said, if you're
They're
trying to hit the U.S., like if that's some of what you're trying to hit,
they've already hit the U.S. They're fine here. Again, I don't think Xbox is number one in the U.S. The PlayStation is. So why would you need to get a Phil Spencer like when you're already number one? And again, not number one in the sense of like, let's just ride our coattails, but that's not what got you to number one, right? You had whoever was before Jim Ryan was affable and all that, and then Jim Ryan's a jerk. So, like he has that appearance and you're still number one. So what is
I just looked up video game CEOs and I'm about to die. I hear Bobby Kotick's coming free.
Oh yeah. I was gonna mention his name. I was like,
oh Lord, that's funny.
Stay away from Bobby.
That killed me. I just wasn't thinking of that, and then he was a first name that popped up when I looked. I was like, oh gosh.
No, staying away from that.
I think it'd be a really funny joke if, like, April 1st, they walk into the office and
Phil Spencer.
It's literally those of you who've watched The Office, it's the actor who played Asian Jim. Is just sitting there.
I haven't seen it. I didn't watch The Office.
Yeah, you see, if you watch The Office, you'd get the joke. He's just sitting there. He's like, hey, I never said I was
saying. I get what you're saying.
Okay, laugh for him because I'm not laughing. No.
I needed that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough CEOs, and I have found that when CEOs are hired, it's not somebody like, oh, look, Tim Schafer's the new CEO of, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like these people tend to stay in the zone that they excel in, and these positions typically are like business people.
That's why
that do
Jim
happen to
did so well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's a businessman of businessmans.
I do like David's mention of Kojima, because if you were curious about what PlayStation's releasing next year, imagine if Kojima was in charge. He brings the X factor.
Bam, we had a state of play literally every month. I still don't know what they're coming out with.
Nothing like Kojima to make that more clear for you, except it's not.
Like,
just more questions.
There's no idea what is releasing.
Yeah, Kojima would be. I couldn't even imagine what Kojima.
Mark. Like every game, you get a question mark for its release date.
No, he'd have some metaphor. Like he'd be like, "I'm going to get a film crew and I'm going to do some CGI stuff, and we're going to do a metaphor for the games that we're going to release, and it's going to be like chips falling from the sky, like earthworms, like driving cars, and like it's just all kinds of like weird, stupid. And you're just going to be like, whoa.
See,
Kojima,
they need to go.
What was this?
They need to go just get Joseph Ferris.
We're gonna release some games, guys.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, 2023 is gonna be. Yeah. All right.
Yep.
We wish Jim Ryan all the best. He did a good job. I enjoyed his extremely serious presentation of the PlayStation 5 when that first came out. That was my most memorable moment of Jim Ryan's career for me.
He just wasn't a camera guy, and that's fine because not every single CEO needs to be a camera guy.
No, I agree. I was still intrigued.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I still watch that mess. All right. So, yeah, that'll do it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week. Deuces.